Hey everybody. So I'm coming to you right now from my own front yard. As you can see, we were hit pretty hard by the storm that came through last week. Right next to my house, I used to have a tree that stood about 70 feet tall. As you can see right here, it is now a 35-foot tall tree. The reason for this is in the storm last Wednesday, it broke off in the middle. You can see the remaining 35 feet right here in my front yard. Fortunately, it missed our house, but it did knock out the power lines that were leading to our house, leaving us without power or heat for 2 days. As the tree fell, it landed in the fork of this other tree in our front yard, splitting it almost all the way down to the ground. So if you look up at the top of the remaining tree, you can see the part where it broke off. If you look closely, you can see a little black spot right in the middle of the wood. Down here on the ground is the second half of that puzzle piece that used to be up there. That black spot is where the wood was old and rotten, and so when the strong winds came, it didn't stand much of a chance. So here is ground zero of what caused the tree to fail. So today, I'd like to talk about what happens when bad things happen. The first thing to know is there's nothing wrong with you and nothing wrong with your family if bad things happen. So in addition to what I'm seeing today, I had some destruction here on my property, I've had a lot worse that's happened to my family. We've had physical challenges where people in the hospital for a long time. We've had mental illness we've dealt with for years. We've dealt, in my family growing up, we've had several divorces we've had to work with. Now, because people usually don't talk about bad things like these happening in their lives, you might not think that they're normal. When something like this goes on, you might not be aware of how people deal with that because people just aren't talking about it. The big thing to remember is that it's not so important if bad things are happening to you or not. It's more important on how you deal with it and how you work with it, because this really is a normal part of life. Now, a second big thing to keep in mind when bad things happen is to look for the helpers. This is something I learned about from a man by the name of Fred Rogers, and his mom said, hey, whenever a disaster occurs, look for the helpers. In my case, it was my neighbor. You see this open spot of lawn? It wasn't that way a day ago. When I was at work yesterday, all of this was full of tree. However, my neighbor knew that in order for the power company to come in and re-hook up my power, this place would need to be emptied. So he brought his tractor, he brought his chainsaw, he cleared this out for me without me ever being here. That is a huge deal, something I'm really grateful to him for. The fact of the matter is, when bad things happen and people know about it, they reach out, they try to help you. So look for people to help you in your life. You don't have to do things alone. Now, the last thing I want to mention about when bad things happen is something called taking initiative. Taking initiative means when something happens, you can't just wait for someone else to do the work. You've got to do your part. You've got to step up and make something happen. Case in point for me is that when the tree knocked out our power, I couldn't just wait for the power to come back on. I had to find an electrician who would go ahead and repair that part where it hooked up to our house. I had to get hold of the power company. I had to get hold of our insurance agent to let them know what was going on. There's a lot of details of things you don't think about when bad things happen that you've got to go out and make happen. So one thing that happens a lot is somebody will be sick and then they'll have some missing assignments, and that might lead to a failing grade. Often when I'll talk to students like that, they'll say, but I was sick, so of course I'm going to have that missing. Well, yes, you were sick, but hey, you've got to do your part. You've got to talk to the teacher to find out what you missed. You got to keep up on your other work while you're doing that work you make up. You might need to talk with them about, hey, can I turn this in a bit later? All of that stuff is something you can do that's not just waiting around and just accepting when bad things happen. In my case, my family wouldn't have been very happy with me if I had said, oh, sorry, our power's out, bad things are happening, we gotta live with that, folks. No, they needed me to go out there and make as much happen so we could get warm as quick as we could. Fact of the matter is, when bad things happen, it's on us to do as much as we can to take care of it too. So for today's challenge, if you're comfortable, please share with somebody in your class a time when something bad happened, and either one, somebody helped you out, Or number two, either you or someone in your family took initiative to help make things better. What did you do? How'd you get through that hard time? The fact is, we don't have to be afraid of bad things happening when we know how to deal with them. All right, you take care.